Well, can we please talk about UFC 262 and and stuff that's been going on in the news this week? So, if you're new to this show, welcome. And but what I like to do on this show is I make some terrible bets throughout the week. But this is the kind of midweek wrap-up show where I review the bets that I've done in the week and also take a quick look at the MMA news and things that have been going on. So, without further ado, let's have a look at UFC 262. UFC 262 was incredible. If you are an MMA fan and you haven't watched UFC 262, do yourself a favour, go back, watch it, find it from. It's really worth a watch. It was an excellent event. So, they started this card really strong. Really strong. Shane Burgos versus Edson Barbosa was an incredible matchup to start off the main card because that's an important fight. It's an important fight because it's the first card on pay-per-view, the first fight on pay-per-view. It's one that it's quite an important spot because the UFC want a fight that's going to really deliver, going to get the fans kind of tuned in. And Barbosa versus Burgos, that really delivered. I'm glad I took the side action on the KO because I had Edson Barbosa winning this one. And I just took the straight win, and I had a small side bet because it was 5-1 on the knockout. Well, 4-1. And I was glad that I did because I did think that, Burgos' style played directly into Edson Barbosa's hands because Barbosa, he was an underdog going into that fight. And it was deceptive because he fights so many really high level guys. He's got a lot of red on his record, but there are a lot of guys who number one are extremely good. They're the elite of the division, and number two, they also took place at lightweight, not at featherweight. And number three is that they often they were able to at least attack, threaten with the wrestling. And anybody standing with Edson Barbosa is just in a lot of trouble. We saw that against Dan Hooker, and we also saw it last weekend with Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos, they call him Hurricane Shane. He is a hurricane. He's very good in his own right, but his style played right into Edson's wheelhouse, and he didn't taste a wheel kick, but he did taste a lovely, I think it was a right hook that did it in the end. It was a right hook that clipped Burgos right on the temple. And he kind of stood there for a minute and tried to and at first it looked like he'd taken it, but then his legs just went out from under him. And it was kind of a delayed knockout. It was bizarre. Never seen anything like it. If you haven't seen that fight, you don't want to watch the whole fight. Just go back and find the clip. If you look at Edson Barbosa KO Burgos, you'll find it instantly. It was really good. So this is going to be interesting for Barbosa now because Barbosa, he's a big name. He is actually quite a big name in MMA, and he's at featherweight. He's looking very good. He has called out Max Holloway, and I like that call out. That is a good fight because Max Holloway is excellent. He's a very good grappler in his own right, but I think that he would be the kind of guy that would want to stand with Edson Barbosa. I don't know how that goes for Max because honestly, standing up against Edson Barbosa, I don't know how that goes for anybody. As good as Max Holloway is, I just think Barbosa, if you looked up fast twitch muscle fibre in the dictionary, it's got a picture of Edson Barbosa there. At least, in my one at least. So I just think that Barbosa is a problem for anyone at 145. I would love to see that fight against Max Holloway. I think Edson Barbosa, he's earned a big opponent because if he then beats Max Holloway, he is next in line for a title shot, no doubt about it. And Barbosa needs to be put into those fights. He needs to be put in those situations. Make that fight happen. I am all on board. Then we have Beneil Dariush taking on Tony Ferguson, and well, kind of depressing, isn't it? Because look, I like Tony Ferguson. I don't think he's looked good really since he beat Rafael dos Anjos back in, I think that was 2013. So that's going back a little while. He just got beaten in every area, didn't he? Dariush was just better in every area. And honestly, I didn't think that he would be. I bet on Tony in this one. Now, I'd bet against Tony in both Gaethje and Oliveira because I thought that those guys were just better. Now, looking at Dariush's record, it wasn't like It's the same with Tony Ferguson's record. Tony Ferguson went on that 12-fight win streak, and it was deceptive, right? Because I'm not going to say that any of those wins were lucky, but what I would say was that, it's not like he was dominating all those 12 guys. Look at the fight with Pettis. He got knocked down twice, and that was a back and forth until Pettis had to retire with an injured hand. There were more than one fight where Tony was getting dominated, and then he managed to pull out a D'Arce choke, which is still impressive. But it's not like he dominated 12 people in a row, like it's sheer domination, like the other guys didn't even have a chance of winning. He did dominate Dos Anjos, and I think that was the best Tony that we've ever seen. But he hasn't... one of the commentators, he hit the nail on the head, I think. The problem with Tony Ferguson is that he's so unorthodox and so crazy with his style. He focuses so much on the crazy stuff and not nearly enough on the fundamentals, because his fundamentals just didn't seem to be there. And Dariush he beat him everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. I do not know where Tony Ferguson goes from here. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But let's have a look at the winner, right? Dariush, let's not take anything away from Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush looked sensational, and I would like to give him credit where credit's due. I still think that Tony Ferguson is a very dangerous opponent, and I think that Dariush made it look easier than it should have been. And credit to Beneil Dariush for doing that. Who's next for Dariush? Well, realistically, it's got to be the loser of Dustin Connor, isn't it? I mean, that makes sense. Because, it'd be rank 3 versus rank 4 for Gaethje. Actually, you know what? Gaethje would be a better fight. Because Gaethje isn't matched up with anyone right now, which is a goddamn crime. That is a crime. Get that man a fight. Justin Gaethje is too good of a fighter, too exciting of a fighter to be sitting on the sidelines. Match that man up with Beneil Dariush, because that would put him right back in the title picture with a win over Beneil. Beneil's like ranked 4th. Justin's ranked 3rd. Make that fight happen. Style-wise, that's a great fight. You could headline a fight night or co-main a numbered event with that fight, no problem. Yeah, get that one on a card, Sean Shelby. Make it happen. Then you had Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. What a great fight. That was an excellent fight. Back and forth, it was competitive. There was no shame in Chandler losing that fight. I'm sure he will be back. But for me, Oliveira, I did say this before, I felt like Oliveira just had more ways to get it done. And he did. I mean, I was betting on the submission, but it was the hands that got it done, which is... Like I said, Oliveira, he's just been around for so long. Like I said, when he first started in the UFC, Brock Lesnar was the champion and the lightweight division was only 4 years old. Do you know what I mean? That's how long Oliveira has been around. People, look, when Oliveira beat Tony Ferguson, right, there were so many people that came out and said, oh, this new young guy, Oliveira, coming up and beating Tony Ferguson like the older fighter. Yeah, Tony Ferguson might have been older in age, but Charles Oliveira had been in the UFC for longer than Tony Ferguson. And so I found it odd. It's like, no, he's not this new guy that's come along. He has put in the work. He's put in the time, and his time is now. I couldn't be happier to see Charles Oliveira win that title. It's just a long time coming, and you know what? His skill set is as good as it's ever been. He can go. He's a demon on the ground. He's much better on the feet now. He's finished more than he finished Chandler on the feet. It seems like wherever the fight goes, Charles Oliveira will meet you there, and that's the kind of guy that you want. It's going to be interesting seeing where this goes because, I mean, I wish I had put money on the knockout because those would have been great odds. I didn't get very good odds on the submission at all. But, obviously Charles Oliveira has the most submissions in UFC history. So, percentage guess is a submission win, but, it didn't go my way. But I did have Oliveira to win, so I'm happy with that. And I'm just happy that Charles Oliveira won the belt, if I'm totally honest. And obviously, the winner of Conor and Poirier is going to fight Charles for the title. It's a nice, easy one to match up. And you know what? The losers are easy to match up as well. So the loser of Dustin versus Conor will take on Chandler. Basically the lightweight division is more or less matching itself up right now. Stick Gaethje in against Dariush as well. There's some very good matchups in that division. So let's move on to the news. This isn't really news, but it's just something that I saw posted on one of these MMA forums that I'm in, that I get into these arguments in, and I shouldn't really. I know I shouldn't. It's a waste of energy. But either way, this guy was saying that GSP was the greatest of all time, and that he beat everyone at their own game. No, he didn't. I mean, that's just not true, is it? Don't get me wrong. Credit to GSP. He's possibly the greatest of all time. I don't like that term. I really don't like that term. But if somebody was going to be put into that conversation, it's Georges St. Pierre. And he went on a hell of a run. He had a lot of title defences. Did he go out of his way to beat people at their strongest skill set? The answer is no. And if you think that, you're deluding yourself. And I don't know why you're taking somebody who is so great, who had such a great run, and having to put that fiction on there as well. It kind of trivialises his career a bit for me. So shut up with all that. You know? Because this guy came back and said, well, you know, he did out-wrestle Olympic wrestlers. Who? Which Olympic wrestler did Georges St. Pierre out-wrestle? Point to him. Which one? Who was it? Huh? And then he came back and went, oh, Johnny Hendricks. I was like, Johnny Hendricks never wrestled in the Olympics. He was a 2-time NCAA, which is his wrestling credentials were extremely good. Was he ever an Olympian? No! So he's not an Olympic wrestler, is he? You idiot. Huh? So no, look. At the end of the day, if Georges St. Pierre had decided to just stand up with Thiago Alves, for instance, just stand up and just get into a kickboxing fight with him, rather than kind of, wrestle him, which was the right decision to make to get the win, then I'd understand. Then I'd say, yeah, you've got a point. John Jones has a habit of doing what this guy said. John Jones tries to go out and beat people at their own game. I kind of see that point for John Jones. GSP wasn't that guy. GSP was a winner. GSP was a winner. He went out there to win. He played to his strengths, not to his opponents, because GSP's a smart motherfucker, and he's one of the best to ever do it. But he didn't try and play to his opponent's strengths. If you're adding that to GSP's career, you're adding fiction. There is no need to add fiction to GSP's great career. Enough said. Speaking of Georges St. Pierre. Apparently Dana White has blocked Georges St. Pierre from boxing Oscar De La Hoya. You know what? I completely see why. I don't think there's a huge market for that particular boxing match. I don't think that they would make nearly as much money from that as they did from Floyd versus Conor, because there are some people saying, well, he let Conor box Floyd. It's like, that's because the UFC made money hand over fist in that fight. And they're like, well, GSP hasn't fought in ages. How can he possibly still be under contract? Because he signed a multi-fight deal and didn't fight all of those fights, you dickhead. It's contracts. That's why they have contracts in there. Do you know what I mean? So, if GSP wants to compete, it has to be in the UFC. That's why they have the contracts. That's why they do it that way. And you know what? Yeah, it's... Was I excited for that boxing match? No. So am I devastated that it's been blocked? No. Who would win? Hypothetically? Well, it depends how much partying De La Hoya's done since 2008, which was when he last fought. And sources indicate it's a lot. That's a lot of partying. So, so moving on. Tony Ferguson has not retired. I'm going to, like I said, we did allude to this earlier. So basically, despite now losing 10 straight rounds in MMA, he has insisted that he is now pissed off. I'm pissed off now, man. I'm not giving these guys an easy way out. So, for God's sake, Tony, please give yourself an easy way out. Please retire. I'm kidding. I don't know. Should he not have had that fire going in against Dariush, though? Didn't seem like he had all that much urgency. And the problem is, I think he's fighting killer after killer. I think that they maybe need to, if he's going to have another fight, he needs to look further down the rankings. Maybe a rematch with Cowboy Cerrone. That's a nice, easy enough fight for him. RDA probably wants a rematch. I'm not sure I like that fight for Tony. It's too much to lose, and I don't know if he necessarily wins that fight. Looking at RDA's latest form, Dan Hooker is just next down the list from RDA in the rankings. Don't really like that matchup for Tony either. Paul Felder would be fun. Yeah, Paul Felder against Tony Ferguson. I think realistically that's the fight to make. If you're going to give Ferguson one more shot, it has to be Paul Felder. I think stylistically that'll be a fun fight. It's a winnable fight for both men. Paul Felder, if he wants to make a run at that title, he needs a name like Tony Ferguson, on his record, and Tony Ferguson needs to get a win by any means necessary. So yeah, go ahead. For Paul Felder against Tony Ferguson, make that one happen. Troll of the week. I could only find 2 this week. He was a bit thin on the ground in funny memes, but this is a funny one. So obviously, you know how outspoken Derek Lewis is. Well, you got these 3 iconic guys in the sport. You've got Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. His hands can't hit what his eyes can't see. And then you've got Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Wise words. Wise words. And then even wiser words from Derek Lewis. My balls was hot. Brilliant. To the point. Fantastic. Because, yeah, there was that time that basically he took his shorts off whilst Joe Rogan was interviewing him. And Joe said, why are you taking your shorts off? He's like, my balls was hot. It's like, I like him. He's straight and he's to the point, And then we've got this one. This one is good if you're a fan of the US Office as well. If you haven't seen the US Office, this is going to make 0 sense to you. But I'm going to do it anyway. Basically, when they go to Tallahassee in Florida, in order to get rid of the hussy Kathy, Jim tries to get out of his room by saying there's a bed bug in his room. And he calls Dwight in to combat the bed bugs. And basically he asks, what did it look like? Was it like kind of angry, or was it like cocky and arrogant? It's really arrogant. And it's like, yeah, the bed bug, according to Jim, is Conor McGregor walking. I always thought that actually. I mean, he does. Yeah, he walked out like this. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like Conor. And somebody finally did a meme about it, and it amused me. I enjoyed it. So yeah. That is all we've got time for this week. So, like I said, I'm going to be placing some bets. Cody Garbrandt taking on Rob Font at the weekend. There's also Jack Hermansson against Edmund Shabazian, because that one was delayed from 262. That one's going to be taking place. And there's some delicious heavyweight fights on the card. So, until Friday, keep those odds long and those bets terrible. I'll see you next time.